Welcome, everyone, to Season 1, Episode 2 of The Games People Play. Bernie Corbett, your host, back with you this week. And once again, we are at New England's largest sports memorabilia shop. And, of course, it is the world-famous Sports World, Phil Castanetti Sports World, since 1986, a New England institution for sports memorabilia. And if you're in the area, certainly come to Route 1 in Saugus and check it out. And if not, you can certainly do business with Phil through the miracle of the internet for all of your sports memorabilia needs. Very pleased to be back here, and want to thank the guest on our debut. Season 1, Episode 1 was last week. If you missed it, you can still catch up with us. We had Reggie Smith with us last week, 17-year major leaguer. And once again, thanks to Reggie for joining us from Los Angeles. This week, we're going to have a guest that'll be joining us from Chicago. We'll be shifting gears, as we mentioned at the end of last week's show, from the diamond to the rink. And very pleased to have with us as our guest this week, Eddie Olczyk. Eddie's career spanned some 16 years in the National Hockey League. And just some career highlights for Eddie. Played 1,031 career NHL games. It's always a major milestone to hit in the NHL, to play more than 1,000 games. 342 career goals, 452 assists for 794 overall points. Was inducted to the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame in 2013. Was the third pick of the 1984 NHL draft. And that followed his stint with the 1984 U.S. Olympic team. Has the distinction of the second longest streak for an American player, tied with Phil Kessel, an 18-game point streak during his career, and also 2 career 6-point games. Represented his country proudly in 9 international appearances through the Olympics, the World Championships, and the second-place finish for the U.S. in the Canada Cup in 1991. So very pleased to have Ed join us this week on the program, and an opportunity once again, as is our mission on The Games People Play, to talk about not only the career on the ice, on the field of play, but also, as we say, the man or woman in full, to talk about what they have done. And of course, Ed's accomplishments have been considerable, as has the challenges in his life been considerable in recent years. So very happy to have Ed with us once again from Phil Castanetti Sports World here on Route 1 in Saugus. Ed, be ready to join us here? Yep. All right. Drum roll, please. Ed, welcome to the program. Great to have you with us.
How are you, Bernie?
I'm doing well. We had met. Can I call you Ed? So we've only met once in person, but we did kind of spend the weekend together at the arena out at Notre Dame, at the fabulous Compton Family Ice Center back several years ago. You were there to cover for NBC in the Notre Dame Boston University series. I was out there for Boston University. So if I could be so bold to use the nickname that Mike Lang, I believe, tagged you with a number of years ago in Pittsburgh.
A long time ago, and just for the record, it was actually Kevin Stevens, my former teammate with the LA Kings, was my former roommate and my car mate for the year that we played together with the Kings back in 1996, which is a hell of a long time ago. But Arthur Louise gave me that nickname, and I haven't looked back, that's for sure.
Well, Kevin's a good friend of ours, and is a very close friend, in particular of my producer, Andy Bernstein. And that is, it's amazing that right off the top, you bring up the name Kevin, a.k.a. Artie Stevens, who, no introduction, the inimitable Artie Stevens to hockey fans across the globe. But once again, Ed, great to have you here, and an opportunity. Once again, we have touted The Games People Play as the man in full to be able to tell your story. And your story, of course, began in suburban Chicago, growing up as a diehard Chicago Blackhawks fan. You got on the ice, I believe, at age 6, and it was a less than an auspicious debut, and also maybe a little bit of an equipment problem.
Yeah, I mean, one day I brought coming home from school. If you remember back in the day, at least in the suburbs of Chicago, we would get pieces of paper from our teachers that would have meetings scheduled or PTA or special lunch that the students would take from their teachers, and then they would put in their folders going home. I didn't have a backpack back in the day, so I just crumpled it up and put it in my pocket and would bring it home to my mom. And one of those pieces of paper happened to say learn to skate. It didn't say learn to play hockey. It was just like a learn to skate program. And I brought it home, and I was active in baseball, but nothing else. And my mom just asked me, I don't know why, just out of the blue, do you want to give it a try? And I'm like, yeah. So my mom went to the local store, which I guess back in, that was in 72, it would be like today's Walmart or Target, where you could go there and get a gallon of milk, get some hammers and nails, and then you could also buy some sporting equipment. And the place was called Memco, and we went in there. My mom said, "Hey," told the guy, "we need a pair of skates." And the guy gave me a nice pair of white skates. I took them to the rink a couple of days later, and the instructor said, "Well, you might want to give them some hockey skates, but these will do for the day." And I hit the deck. I spent more time on the ice than I did on my feet. And of course, as a young kid, you just want to pack up and turn the page. But my mom said, "Let's give it a chance." And so we went back, days after that, and the so-called rest is history. But that's how I got introduced to hockey, was by learning to skate. And then they had a learn to play program to learn to play hockey. And then the so-called rest is history.
And considerable sacrifices, as you've documented. I also want to mention, we'll mention it more than once, believe me, your book that came out last fall, Beating the Odds in Hockey and in Life, with Perry Lefko. I know he's a good friend of yours from both horse racing and hockey, from the Toronto Sun. And considerable sacrifices is the case. It's a familiar hockey story, Ed, with kids around the world, in terms of sacrifices that families make in order to make the hockey dream come true. You were no exception.
Well, I mean, it is it's a 24-hour a day passion. It's a 13-month commitment. For me, I played baseball and hockey my whole life, all the way until I was, I think, 13 or 14 years old. And, things certainly worked out, but, I had to make a career decision on whether or not I wanted to pursue a hockey career or baseball career when I was, 13 or 14 years old. And, I love baseball. I mean, still to this day, the real Ed Olczyk, my father, still thinks I would have been a better baseball player than a hockey player. But, I would have loved to continue to play baseball a little bit longer. I look back at, Danny Ainge or Deion Sanders, Bo Jackson, like probably missing another handful, but you know what I'm getting at. I mean, guys that played competitive sports through high school and then into college, but, I decided just, I'm going to focus hockey, and hockey became 13 months a year when I was right around 13 or 14 years old. And, lots of sacrifice, lots of family time away. I mean, I have two younger brothers. My one brother, Ricky, currently a vice president and assistant general manager with the new Seattle franchise, working with the great Ron Francis. So they'll be up and running, hopefully, in a year and a half or so. My brother went to Brown for 4 years and then went to Cornell law school. So yes, I'll say it for you, Bernie. He got all the brains. I know I got the looks. He got the brains. I got the looks. And, he played hockey and football and baseball. And my younger brother, Randy, very successful in the real estate world here in Chicago. So it just became a part of our fabric. It became a part of our family. And, there were a lot of interruptions in family because it was hockey season. But, anybody that's involved in the game certainly can can attest to that because of, travel and schedules and, family. Probably look back now, unfortunately, became secondary in a lot of situations because one parent's going here, one parent's going there, you're going with this family, you're going with this family, but that's what we chose to do. And I certainly did that with my boys as well. I have 3 boys and a daughter, and my oldest son, Eddie, played 4 years at UMass in Amherst. And
yep.
My son Tommy played at Penn State for 4 years, and my youngest son Nick was at Colorado College for a couple of years. So, they lived it as well, and so everything we have, we owe to the game of hockey. And yeah, there was a lot of sacrifice and commitment, but I wouldn't change anything, that's for sure.
Well, 2 major events from your young hockey career that I wanted to ask you about, and one was you had the opportunity to play in the iconic Quebec Pee Wee International Tournament at age 12. And I've talked to guys over the years that have played in that. I don't think there's any real showcase in sports that really equals the magnitude of that, the attention, the notoriety that's been attained for guys that played in that tournament. What do you remember about that experience coming from suburban Chicago and going up and having an opportunity to play in Quebec and play in the Colisée and all that went with it?
Yeah. Well, I think my first initial instincts were, 12-year-old hockey players playing in front of 16 or 17,000 people. I mean,
it's a little daunting.
It was pretty much surreal. And probably the second thing is how many junior high and high school kids were smoking watching the games. That's what I remember that like yesterday. I was 12 years old, like you said, and I was lucky enough to play it twice, which was an unbelievable experience and fun to be a part of. But going to that tournament and knowing the history, Bernie, and knowing the players that had played there and playing, in such a big, in such a big stadium, it seemed like it was, one of the wonders of the world, right? When you walk in there as a 12-year-old kid, you see all these people just wanting to watch Pee Wee hockey players. My family enjoyed themselves. We enjoyed ourselves. We got to the semifinals both years. Unfortunately, weren't able to win, but that was when I started getting involved in travel hockey. That's when I became a squirt. You're like, you hear about this tournament, and you're like, wow, this is like the Stanley Cup. Like this is the place you got to get to. And lucky enough, I played, as a second year squirt, I played up 1 year, and then obviously my second year I stayed back and played. But yeah, it was great, and it was funny. The other day on Father's Day, I had my dad over here, and we were just talking about the old days like we do, and we talked about the tournament, and I always have said this. I said the best Pee Wee hockey player that I ever saw in person was Sylvain Cote, and everybody out in the Boston area should remember him from his days in Hartford with the Whale, and he was, I don't know, I'm going to say he was probably 6 feet. Probably 170 pounds as a Pee Wee, and he's probably 6 feet and about 178 pounds in the NHL. He got up and down that ice, and he was like a man. He was a man amongst boys, and he did what he wanted, and he played. I don't even remember what the periods were. I don't know if they were 15 or whatever, but he probably played, if it was a 45-minute game, he probably played 42 minutes. Like he never left the ice, but. He was in person. He was the greatest Pee Wee hockey player that I ever saw, and then eventually ended up, playing against them for, a long time in the National Hockey League.
Well, when we met back that Notre Dame, that series at Notre Dame with Boston University, my color analyst was Tom Ryan. He was captain of the '88 BU team, and he played in Quebec, and he still talks about Sylvain Cote from that tournament. Yeah. So I'm not surprised. It made a lot of impression on a lot of people, like everybody in hockey.
Yeah, it's a lot of players have played there, and I know the tournament has changed over the years, but It's our version of, the Little League World Series, pretty much. I mean, it really is, because you bring everybody together and you're playing in a tournament, and you get the best teams at certain locales, and I mean, it's big. It's always been a big tournament, and hopefully when we can get on the right side of this pandemic, young kids can have those dreams and aspirations. Hopefully, young hockey players, anyways, that maybe get a chance to get to that tournament once again.
And then at the midget level, you had a chance to win a national championship once again, representing the suburban Chicago area, and ended up playing in the finals. I guess that was your first opportunity to meet a guy named Pat LaFontaine, who was playing for CompuWare at the time. You guys, your paths would cross again.
Yeah, we actually played the midget nationals that year. I think was 81, 82. And it was in Manchester, New Hampshire.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember Charlie Holt was there, because I think at that time, Bernie, I would imagine that he was
UNH coach.
Right? And so it was CompuWare and Team Illinois, and we had played them, I think, 4 or 5 times prior to that in different tournaments and whatever. And look, I mean, Patty's team, and they had Ally Afraidy on that team. I think one of the Hatchers was on that team. A kid by the name of Jeff Rolacek was on that team. I mean, Elfie Turcotte was on that team. His son was just drafted by LA this year in this last draft in the first round. He played he played at Wisconsin for a year, and then just recently signed. So they were a stacked team, and we had a good team, but they were like they anointed themselves as the greatest midget team ever to be assembled, and I think they only had lost maybe 2 or 3 games all year. And like I said, we hadn't beaten them, and we got to Manchester. We were there. We played, and we got to the championship game, and somehow, some way, we got a chance to get a lead. We held on and won a national championship in Manchester. So that was, for me, that was kind of the first step. Okay, well, we've accomplished the championship at that level, and now, do I want to go to prep school? Do I want to go play major junior? Do I want to go play junior B up in Canada? Do I want to keep my eligibility, go to school, and what have you? So that was a real stepping stone tournament for me, and still to this day, keep in contact with a lot of guys on that team. And unfortunately, we lost our team manager this past January. Tony Quillis, who was our team manager, his son Danny was our goaltender. We eventually went up to Stratford, Ontario the year after we won there in 81, 82. We went and played junior B hockey together, lived together. But Mr. Quillis was the gentleman that introduced me to horse racing back when I was.
That's right. He got you to the track.
I was a young boy, and I know I'm kind of going all over the map here, but since we're talking about the team and
sure,
our manager, he did everything for us. You can't, without those volunteers and those managers and the people that give up their time, it's not possible for the young kids. And but Mr. Quill, my passion for horse racing came from him, who was a horse player himself. Took me to the track when I was 12 or 13 years old, and he passed away of cancer. And right before I worked for NBC this last November for the Breeders' Cup, I had a chance to visit with him, and he wanted one more winner. He told me he wanted one more opportunity to make a bet, and I gave him my best bet of the weekend at the Breeders' Cup last year, and happened to be Vino Rosso, who was owned by Vinny Viola, the owner of the Florida Panthers. Right. And Vinny owned Vino Rosso with his wife Teresa, and he ended up winning, and Mr. Quill made his last bet, and he was able to win it, and then unfortunately lost his battle to cancer in January. So great memories. Not only helped me as a young hockey player and being our manager and Mr. Everything, but also that's how I developed my love for horse racing, was through him. So very, it was a tough time back in January, but I know that as his oldest son, Tony, said at his service that, his one last bet was a winning one. And I got the primary assist. So I'm pretty darn proud of that.
Absolutely. Important to go out a winner.
That's it.
God bless Mr. Corliss. I know that he was your horse racing mentor. And you mentioned about going to Stratford to play junior hockey, and went up there with a couple of guys that you had familiarity with as teammates, but a little bit of a culture shock there as the Americans, or the Americans coming in with the pedigree to play junior hockey. That was a little bit of an eye opener for you.
Yeah, I mean, I left home when I was 15, like most, a lot of hockey players do. Not as much now because hockey has become, there are many more opportunities locally for young players in all areas, regardless of what league or level it is. So, it was tough, but I had I had the support, most importantly, Bernie, from my folks that they supported my move to move 8.5 hour car drive to another country, so to speak, and live away from home, and had to grow up pretty darn quick, that's for sure. But I had a couple of opportunities. I did think about going to prep school. I did think about going to play or stay home one more year, play another year of midget. But I just thought that it was time to jump into the deep end of the pool, and went up and played junior B hockey in Stratford, Ontario. And the late Dinny and Joan Flanagan, husband and wife, they really ran the Stratford Cullitons, and brought a lot of really good young hockey players there, and developed into some of the best players that ever played in the National Hockey League. Two guys in particular, both Chris Pronger and Rob Blake, were recruited by the Flanagans and played in Stratford, and they moved on to the NHL. And you could argue, in my opinion, the last handful of years that, you could argue that Rob Blake and Chris Pronger are top 10 defensemen in the last 20 years in the NHL, last 25 years. So, but yeah, it was a great experience to go to Stratford, to have the opportunity to play a lot and play against older guys. I mean, I was the youngest guy in the league.
Yep.
Was only 16, and playing against, at that time, Bernie, I thought, when you're 16, you think guys that are 19 and 20 are really old. Just for the record, now, no, old is 100, old is 110. But it was a great experience. I had an opportunity to play a lot, and I'll never always be grateful to the city of Stratford and the late Dinny and Joan Flanagan for giving me a chance to go up there and play. And we lost the championship in the All Ontario Championship that year. And actually that year, the goaltender for the team at Henry Carr was Bobby Asenza, goalie Bob, who now the current goalie coach for the Bees, and former teammate of mine with the Winnipeg Jets for a long time. So had a great time going to Stratford, and really kind of the set of stairs were working out. They just happened to be in the right place at the right time, and Stratford was the next stair, so to speak.
Well, you thrived against the older competition. You got 50, and you got 92 assists. Not bad. MVP, Rookie of the Year, most impressive newcomer. That seems to be a little redundant, but I'll give it to you. Most enthusiastic, and the 3-star award. And I guess there wasn't a congeniality or a talent like Miss America, or you might have won that too. So that was you pretty much ran the table there at Stratford, and I think that might have been a little iffy for you in terms of direction. But you still had your options open, as you mentioned, as a junior B player. Just one footnote: Clark Donatelli, our mutual friend, did play in Stratford also. So one of our all-time greats. Exactly.
Clarky. Yeah, I played with Clarky a couple of times on a few U.S. teams for the World Championships. Never played World Juniors with him, but played on the World Championship team with him a couple of times. I actually think, again, I can't remember yesterday, let alone what the hell happened 25 or 30 years ago, but I think we actually played together in '86 in Moscow.
World Championships.
Yeah, the World Championships in Moscow in '86, and we're over there, Bernie, and I had been in a league, NHL, a couple of years. We had maybe 7 or 8 pros, and then most of the other kids there were college kids, and certainly Clarkie was one of them. But so we're about 5 or 6 days into the tournament, and our interpreter brings the newspaper back to me. It was probably like I don't want to say it's like the Boston Globe, but it's probably like 30, 40 pages, right? And then like he opens it up 3/4. I don't know exactly what page, but he just kind of tells me in his broken English, he goes, "Eddie, look." And I'm looking at it. I'm like, I have no idea what it says or anything. He goes, "Look, nuclear leak." And I'm like,
Chernobyl.
Nuclear leak? Like, what the hell are you talking about? He goes, Chernobyl. I go, well, where is that? And what do you mean? Like, well, what do you mean? He goes, oh, don't worry. It's like 350 miles away. And I'm like, okay, well, do you have any wind here? Like, does it get windy? Like, will that stuff blow? Like, and he was just like, oh no, everything will be fine. Everything will be fine. And I'm like, holy cow. So, I mean, look, that was about it. Like nobody talked about it. It wasn't on the front page. It was like buried in the 30th page of the newspaper. And next thing you know, obviously we know now, what a disaster that was there. But yeah, so we were there for Chernobyl, and we're still here to talk about it. So that's a positive.
No doubt about it. And of course, the next opportunity was one that, from all indications, from my research, surprised you, and that was the opportunity not to try out for, but at the tender age of 16, was 17 by the time the Olympics, to make 1984 U.S. Olympic at the time might be a little further in the future.
Yeah, I was, when I got the invitation for the Olympic team, most people thought that it was just, it was a token invitation. I was only 16 years old, the youngest player there, that I wasn't going to make the team. But I was very, my goal was to make the team. It didn't matter what had happened 4 years later in Lake Placid, or 4 years earlier in Lake Placid, and having won the gold medal and trying to follow in the footsteps of the 1980 team. But it was unbelievable. I mean, it was very nerve-wracking. I was very nervous, but I just thought, hey, if they would give me an opportunity to play and perform, that I would have a chance to make the team. And as long as they didn't look at my birth certificate, I thought I had a chance to right. play. And Lou Lamoriello, who has been a mentor of mine for a long, long time, Mr. Lamoriello was actually our coach of one of the 4 teams they split up everybody to play in a tournament. We were the East team, and Mr. Lamoriello picked all the youngest guys on that team, and he gave me a chance to play. And we also had a little bit of toughness as well. He made sure that Neil Sheehy was on our team just in case, things got a little rough for the youngsters. And but to go there and get that opportunity, I'll be very, very thankful that I got that chance. And Mr. Lamoriello certainly at the front of that for giving me a chance, trusting me, and was lucky enough to make the team. Right after the sports festival there in Colorado Springs.
5, no less than 5 teenagers on that team. Youngest Olympic team ever. The average age was just 20.7 years. And I guess and also you had the opportunity to play on, they called it the diaper line with Pat LaFontaine and David A. Jensen. If that was today, Huggies would have been all over that, sponsoring the line.
Yeah, we probably should have went out and got a sponsor, that's for sure. But there's Lou Vero, our coach, and then top left is Ali Afridi, lower left is David A. Jensen, and then there on the bottom right is Patty, and then Patty LaFontaine, and then top right corner there, that he's kind of combination of my second son Tommy and my youngest son Nick. So yeah, that's me. And that was Chris Chelios actually gave us that nickname because obviously we were, the young kids, and Chelly wasn't exactly an old man at that time. I mean, he was just over 21, but yeah, that was a great experience. And I look back, Bernie, and go, I mean, unfortunately for our team that year in the '84 Olympics, we were our best line. We didn't
as
get a lot of
youthful
help
as you
from our
were.
veteran guys. Yeah, I mean, that was kind of a disappointing thing with the way things worked out. But hey, at the end of the day, it was an incredible experience to be able to represent our country in a sporting event like that, and but very proud of accomplishing that as a 16-year-old and then a 17-year-old in the Olympics in '84.
The 65 games overnight, because believe me, you've never been to my house, but everything is in my house somewhere, trust me. And I found this is the cover of the program from the Worcester Centrum from the one of the games that you played in that grueling 65 game. Of course, no pressure, go for the gold, '84, and they put Mike Eruzione's picture up there next to Phil Vercoda, but no pressure. You had Phil Vercoda and John Harrington on the team as two of the guys that were the holdovers from 1980. But as you mentioned, I guess, there's the old show business story yet about never follow. I think I went back to W.C. Fields. Boy, am I dating myself right now. To go back to, never follow children and never follow animals. If you're a show business, I guess you probably have Michael Rosione for that to make free in terms of the '84 Olympic Games, children animals and Michael Rosione.
Well, we had no choice, really. Everywhere we went, it was a circus. Everywhere we went, we had lunches and parades, and we were getting keys to the city, and everybody who knew who the men's U.S. hockey team was in 1984.
And just the final note that when I went back and looked at that '84 team, it never is clearly defined as you went to the White House and met the president in September, 5 months before the Olympics. You're supposed to go afterwards.
Well, you're not going to turn down the invitation from President Ronald Reagan, that's for sure. So we went, and we were in the Rose Garden. I think he shot a couple of pucks into the net, and I got a great picture in my office of me standing right next to him, shaking his hand, and something that we're very, very proud of, that we had that opportunity to go there. And yeah, we would love to go there with a gold medal after, but at least I got the opportunity to go to the White House, and lo and behold, I didn't know I would get another opportunity a bunch of years later, with the Stanley Cup.
And of course, you mentioned the NHL draft, 1984 draft. You were the third selection, and Mario Lemieux, Kirk Muller, and you were selected third. Of course, there was no guarantee as to where you were going to go, but what about your reaction at the time that of all the teams that could have drafted you, in the number 3 slot, you go to your hometown, Chicago Blackhawks? Just to give us a perspective of what that moment was like for you. And that's what your NHL destination was going to be coming full circle.
Well, I mean, at that time, the Blackhawks initially had the 6th overall pick, and they actually traded up with the LA Kings, and they ended up flip-flopping, and we all knew that Mario was going to go number 1, to the Pittsburgh Penguins. I actually thought I was going to go to the New Jersey at the 2nd overall pick, and once the Devils bypassed me and took Kirk Muller, I had no idea, because LA had the 3rd pick, and I knew they were going to take a defenseman. They didn't want any forwards, and I thought maybe I would end up going to Toronto then. And then there was a timeout on the floor. Then there was a trade. Chicago moved up to LA, and then LA dropped. And as soon as Chicago got that 3rd overall pick, Bernie, I was like, wow. For all the years growing up here and being a Blackhawk fan, living and dying with the team, that I was going to get drafted by my hometown team. And proud to this day that I'm the first ever American-born native son to be drafted by his hometown team in the first round of the NHL entry draft. And there aren't many things in life that are forever, but I'm proud to say that I'm the first one that had that opportunity. And spent the first 3 years of my NHL career in my hometown, which was just a dream come true. And I played my first game as a Hawk. I played my 1,000th game as a Blackhawk, and I played my last game as a Blackhawk with a lot of games and a lot of stops in between. But it was certainly a dream come true to play for my hometown team as an 18-year-old.
Played your first game October 11th, 1984. You got off to a pretty good start because I went back, I checked the box score. You got a goal in your second game. So I actually saw your second game and your second NHL goal of your long career. So that was my only trip to the Chicago Stadium. I'm glad I got that.
Refresh my memory. Who was my second game against?
It was against the Caps because it was a loss against the Capital. And obviously, as you mentioned, it was obviously an honor and a very unique opportunity to be able to play for your hometown team, and unprecedented to be drafted, as you mentioned, to have the opportunity to play as an American for your hometown team. But that was, kind of a little bit of a good news, bad news in terms of the pressure during your time in Chicago, and maybe being a little bit more under the microscope because of that.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I felt like I had, 38,000 eyeballs on me every night at the old Chicago Stadium, and I was a story just because it never had happened before, but.
Yeah.
I would never trade in that experience. I would never trade in the opportunity to, played for my hometown team. And like I said, I was there for 3 years, got traded after my third year. And really once I left Chicago, I mean, my career took off once I left Chicago. And I almost felt less pressure, Bernie, playing in Toronto than I did in playing in my hometown. But, eventually I went back. And like I said, I played my 1,000th game there and my last game as a Blackhawk. So I'm very proud of that. And, but it was a learning experience. And my rookie year, we actually got to the conference finals. We lost 4-2 to Edmonton in the 85 playoffs. And of course, that was when Edmonton was right in the middle of their heyday. But, 2 wins away from going to the Stanley Cup final in my rookie year was a great experience. And, but very proud to have had that opportunity to play for my hometown team at 2 different occasions for a total of 5 years.
And then, as you mentioned, less pressure, and it really did establish yourself. The numbers bear it out with what you did in Toronto, and a pretty unique hockey market in Toronto in terms of the attention. But you weren't the hometown guy in Toronto, and that probably helped a little bit.
Yeah, it did, because it was, I didn't feel the pressure individually. I just more felt the pressure of the team. And I think I was just able to go out and play. And I moved back to my natural center ice position where I really didn't play much in Chicago. And, went up to Toronto my first year and scored 42 goals. And, just had an opportunity to play a lot and go from there. But I think, again, I was only, I only been in the league 3 years, and I was still immature and still learning the pro game. And, but to go to a place like Toronto, I got the opportunity to go there and play a lot, and play in a lot of key situations. I think I gained a lot of confidence and traction, and really individually anyways, my career really took off once I got to Toronto.
And then in New York, you had the opportunity to accomplish what every kid that puts on a pair of skates, whether they're in North America or now all the way around the world to Europe and beyond, and that is to have your name etched in the Stanley Cup. And a little bit of a bittersweet year for you, though, with your injury in 93, 94, the year of the Cup. The Rangers broke that 54-year drought. Yeah,
I mean, I was a role player that year. I did. I shattered my right thumb, and still, I don't know which. My kids always say, "Dad, which way are we going?" And I hold my thumb out. They're like, "Oh, which way is that? It looks like we're going sideways."
North, south.
Straighten it out. I mean, so. But look, at my role on that team was very small, but to have been a part of a team that won the Cup was absolutely incredible. I mean, we didn't get off to the greatest start that year. I think actually we lost 2
and tied Anaheim and San Jose that year. And I think at that time, I think they were both expansion teams, I think in 94, I think 93, 94, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, we didn't get off to the greatest start, but we knew we had a pretty good team. And once we got on a roll, we knew that we were the team to beat. And but very proud to have been a part of it. I mean, that's why I played, was to have a chance to win the Stanley Cup. And, you know, I was able to do that in my 10th year in the NHL, or 11th year, I guess. And, you know, we had incredible leadership. We had incredible characters on our team. Some guys that were on the cusp of becoming superstars. I mean, you know, you already knew of the, you know, the Mark Messiers and the Craig McTavish and the Kevin Lowe's, but, you know, guys like Leachy, Brian Leach, and Mike Richter and Sergei Zubov, those guys were just on the, you know, they were on the proverbial step stool there, where people are starting to realize and go, holy cow, you're looking at hockey royalty. But it was an incredible experience. You think you know how hard it is to win until you actually attain it. And once we were able to do that against Vancouver in 94, it was the ultimate, and never ever forget it. And, you know, it's hard to believe. We had a 25-year reunion last year in New York. And then this year, obviously, you know, the 26-year anniversary. And also on June the 17th, I'll tell you a quick story here, Bernie.
Yeah.
June the 17th of 1994 was the day that we had our parade. And, you know, we won the cup and party in a couple of days. And then we all met at Madison Square Garden, and all the families and all the players. And we assembled there and got on the buses. And then we went down to Wall Street, and, you know, the Canyon of Champions and Wall Street. And, you know, there's 3 million people out there, and, you know, just having an incredible time. And it happened to be my oldest son, Eddie's birthday that day on June the 17th. And, you know, it was a pretty warm day. It was probably like 90 degrees. We had our Ranger sweaters on and shorts and flip-flops. And, you know, we're going up and down the parade route. And, you know, halfway through, my oldest son, Eddie, kind of, you know, was pulling on my shorts, like, you know, I got to talk to you. So I kind of lean over into him, and all he just says with this big grin on his face, he goes, "Dad, thanks for inviting all these people to my birthday party." So, so I was like, I don't know. I mean, he caught me off guard, and I'm like, well, you're welcome. And then I said, "Look, buddy, this is probably the biggest party you'll ever have. So I'm going to disappoint you the rest of your life. But I'm not sure if Chuck E. Cheese has a capacity or not. But so what makes that so special even now, Bernie, is that my oldest son, Eddie, who we talked about a little bit earlier, went to UMass and played there for 4 years, but now is also an assistant coach at Bemidji State. Go Beavers. And he's an assistant coach on the men's team. Him and his wife, Erica, are expecting a baby in the next, not days, but weeks.
Wow.
So that means that I'm going to be a really old guy, and that means my oldest son, Eddie's going to have a baby, which I don't know where the time has gone, but, you know, anytime it's his birthday, it's a special celebration. But it always takes me back on a personal note that back on June the 17th, 1994, we were on that parade float in New York. And also on that day was the day that OJ decided to go on the white Bronco chase that day. So lots of people didn't see the parade. They saw the parade of people chasing OJ, but you know, nice little anniversary here in the Olczyk household here the last couple of days.
Indeed, that's right. He and Al Connolly decided to go for a ride that day. Yeah, in the Bronco. Yeah. And I'm going to give you a early kudos. It'll be soon to be Grandpa Edzo. How about that?
Yeah, look, I mean, I've had people tell me that it's, you know, it's incredible, and my wife and I are obviously very lucky and looking forward to it very much. But you know, as I tell people that have young kids, Bernie, all the time, I mean, over my travels, like I look back on, you know, as we all reflect, and, you know, we're all going through this COVID-19 pandemic, but, you know, just over the years, and then, you know, I mean, you know, my battle with stage 3 colon cancer a couple of years ago, but, you know, you have time to reflect, and you have a time to, you know, just kind of look back at time and, your life and, what your legacy is going to be. And I always tell people with young kids, just enjoy it because it goes way too fast. Like I would not treat my kids any differently. I wouldn't give them anything differently. I have less discipline in their lives than we did. But the one thing, that I wish, I would give back anything to go back 10 or 15 years and have that time back again. But I know that's not possible, but with a grandchild on the way, then maybe I'll get to do it a second time around and go from there. So, yeah, so thanks. Yeah, we're really excited. And my daughter-in-law, Erica, is doing well. And like I said, she's not days away, she's weeks away, but last time was months away, and now we're here weeks away. So there'll be another generation of Olczyks coming down the pipeline.
The name and the legacy will live on proudly. Your son working with Tom Serratori, part of the Serratori brothers, both head coaches in college hockey at Air Force and Bemidji State, and two of the real characters. Have a lot of character and a lot of characters.
Yeah, absolutely.
Always enjoyed Tom and Frank at Air Force. I wore my original 6 hat. You played for half of the original 6 team.
Yeah.
You had a couple of stints in Winnipeg, and you mentioned Kevin Stevens gave you your name and your sense of hockey history. You were able to give my old pal Keith Tkachuk his nickname. I thought that was a pretty nice touch.
Yeah, I got a chance to play with the legendary Keith Tkachuk in Winnipeg. He came to us, I think, right after the Olympic team, and he walked into the room, and I had known about Keith. I didn't know. I knew his background. And I knew he wasn't related to the legendary Walt Tkachuk for the New York Rangers all those years. But I just figured, as a lot of guys do in hockey, when you get a young guy that comes in, you want to make him feel welcome. And, when he came in, we knew he was big. We knew he was a Tkachuk. We thought, Big Walt was the name to give Keith, and I'm proud to say that I got the primary assist on giving Walt his name, and just a tremendous guy that I got along well. I'm glad I was able to be there when he came in as a young guy, and then I was able to come back a couple of years later after winning the cup in New York, and then coming back and being with him, and just his incredible family now, but his wife Chantel for so many years, and not only obviously an impact player, but a guy you talk about a Cam Neely-ish type of player.
Power forward.
Walt was that for sure, and very, very proud of that. And now he has a couple of chips off the whole block in the
sure does.
In the NHL. So it's a lot of fun to see, and really makes me feel old is when I'm up there doing the games, and I'm calling games with Tkachuks out there, and I'm like, man, oh man, where the hell is that time gone? But yeah, Big Walt's a special guy in the Olczyk guys, that's for sure.
And your time in Pittsburgh led to the beginning of your broadcast career, and also an opportunity to get behind the bench. And how much of a shock was that for you to be able to go from the booth to the bench? I know I went back and looked, and you thought maybe an opening when the Penguins, the minor league Wilkes-Barre and the minor league system, but you ended up behind the bench with the Penguins for 2 seasons.
Yeah, I think I got the opportunity, or I should say I got the opportunity. I knew after I was done playing, even when I was at the end of my career, I knew I was going to get into broadcasting, but I got the, wanting to get into the coaching bug. And, my goal was to go to the minors, to go coach in Wilkes-Barre and work my way up. And at that particular time in 2003, the Penguins had no 2003-04 season. They had no coaches in the organization. And I went in and interviewed for the Wilkes-Barre job in the American Hockey League. And obviously the interview went really well with Craig Patrick, our general manager. And he just said, hey, look, we're building for 5 years down the road. We're going to be selling the players a lot of players off. Actually Craig Patrick's first head coaching job anywhere was in the NHL, just like myself. Now, obviously Craig had a little bit more experience of having been, with the Olympic team in '84 and what have you. But his first head coaching job was in the NHL with the New York Rangers. And, I think he saw a lot of himself in me. And, first year was fine. We were in a rebuild, and I really enjoyed the teaching aspect of it. Like I said, we were in year one of a 5-year plan. And unfortunately, the next year we had a work stoppage. And then the next year after that, instead of just continuing to rebuild, we tried to go from, the outhouse to the penthouse, and, look at, those 3 drafts. And I was a part of all the, not much conversing on what was going on with the third player I'm going to mention to you, but we drafted Marc-Andre Fleury first overall. We moved up from third to first to get him because we had no goaltenders. The next year we had the second overall pick, and we were either going to get the grade 8 Alexander Ovechkin, or we were going to get Evgeny Malkin. And we had no centers in the organization. So not that we were hoping that we would get Malkin, but, I felt as an organization, in order to build and to win, you had to build through the middle of the ice. We got our goaltender. Now we need a centerman. And we ended up getting Malkin, and then we didn't play. And then we had the lottery, and then it was down to us in Anaheim for the last, for the first overall pick the next year. And, we won it, and we drafted Sid. We drafted Sidney Crosby. So for 3 straight years, we got Fleury, Malkin, and Crosby. And obviously you've seen what's happened over the years. So, but we were in a rebuild. And then once we got Sid, all things changed. We started spending money, and we started bringing players in, and then Mario saw what was going on, and, he was the owner, and he wanted to come back and play. And, so, look, I only made it half the season that year, and then I got fired, but, I would never trade in that experience for anything. I enjoyed myself. I enjoyed the teaching. I enjoyed the, fixing the wrong and seeing the guys enjoy the benefit, the wins. But I missed it a lot. I did, but I think it helped me become a better hockey guy. It helped me become a better broadcaster. And, I love what I do now, but it was quite the experience. And unfortunately I wasn't there to see the plan out. Because, 4 years after my first year, we ended up, the Penguins ended up winning a Stanley Cup, and, the so-called rest is history. So very proud to have been there. Thankful to Mario and to Craig Patrick for giving me that chance to be there for 3 years with the organization, 2 years as a coach. And but it was a real proud time in my life, even though, it didn't work out personally. Very proud to have had a hand in the team, kind of turning its fortunes around after having so much success for a lot of years.
As Sidney Crosby, as you mentioned, as his first coach after he was drafted, and as a broadcaster, right to the top, proverbial top of the game, you work with the inimitable Mike Lang, long association with Pat Foley in Chicago, and of course the one and only Mike Emmerich on the NBC and the national coverage as the lead analyst, and as the Blackhawks guy and being the Blackhawks analyst must be a particular pride in this golden age of Blackhawks hockey with 3 Stanley Cups in a 5-year period. Just amazing. I'm sure just a little bit more special for you as a guy that grew up as a diehard Blackhawks fan to have been part of this whole experience with the Blackhawks resurgence.
Yeah, I mean, when you consider where they were, and I had a hand in that, not passing the buck here, but look at, I mean, for some of our older viewers and listeners out there, Bernie, the Chicago Blackhawks back in the mid to late 60s, I mean, they were the number 1 sports team in Chicago. And then there was a stretch there where, they were fighting it out with the Bears and the Cubs, and then you had your early run of the 90s there with the Blackhawks right before, right during the Bulls, obviously runs there with 6 championships and however many years it was for the Bulls. But, then the Blackhawks went, they were irrelevant for a long stretch. And I'm talking, 10 years. And, the late Bill Wirtz, passed away, and his son Rocky, who is still the chairman of the Blackhawks, turned this franchise around, and they've gone from being irrelevant to becoming an important part of the fabric again of the city of Chicago. And look at, there's no better advertising than winning. And they've been able to win 3 cups in 6 years, from 2010 to 13 to 15. And superstar players certainly helped. Great coaching in Joel Quenneville, and great ownership and leadership at the top. And it's really been a renaissance. I think that's probably the one word that's been used the most, that they've gone from, being a blip on the radar in Chicago to being a real important part again. And it's great to see. And nothing like the original 6 teams. You're right. You mentioned it. I had a chance to play for 3 of the 6, and I got that banner over my left shoulder there. You can see the original 6 banner there. And like you said, I mean, 3 of the 6 teams that, that I had a chance to play for. Very, very proud of that. But yeah, hockey is back in a big way. And obviously in Boston too, is, when you have success in any sport, and especially in a sport like hockey, the society we live in, we're in a fast food society, right? We see it, we want to get it, we want to go there, we want to buy it, we want to try it. Well, hockey is not immune to that. When you have success on the ice, the enrollment numbers are going to go up at all levels, boys, girls, everything. It's going to impact the game in a positive way, and that's what's happened here in the city of Chicago with the success of the Blackhawks.
I lost one of my favorite trivia questions in the process that I could always win a round of drinks with. Who was the captain of the last Chicago Blackhawks Stanley Cup champions when it was Eddie Litzenberger in 1961? Could always win a round of drinks with that. So that one was retired.
I'll have to remember that one.
There you go. And, your broadcast success and also afforded you an opportunity. You kind of waited, I guess. You were in, put me in, coach, with Sam Flood at NBC, and give me a chance. And, you got your chance. And, you were part of ending a 54-year drought with the Stanley Cup with the New York Rangers. And you no sooner get involved with the Triple Crown. And we got a couple of Triple Crown winners now to speak of. So you ended that drought with now your association as not only the lead analyst for hockey, but the lead analyst for the Triple Crown.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate that you mentioned Sam Flood, my boss at NBC, and gave me a chance to come in after the legendary JD John Davidson left the broadcast booth with Doc Emmerich to go become the team president of the St. Louis Blues. And there was an empty chair there, and they brought me in, and sitting next to Doc every night like I do, and then on the local broadcast, as you mentioned, with the legendary Pat Foley. I'm a real lucky guy. I just kind of sit in the weeds and get on their coattails and let them do what they do and jump in and add what I can. But, the horse racing thing, that's always been a part of my life, and actually got my start in horse racing, I actually got my start in television through horse racing in the 94-95 work stoppage in the NHL. I was with the Rangers after we won the cup, and I went over to the New Jersey racetrack at the Meadowlands, and they had the thoroughbred meet in the late fall of 94, and they were all Ranger fans there. I brought the Stanley Cup there, obviously, and had a party there. And they said, "Hey, look, you're not working. Why don't you come to the track and, you can handicap the races?" And I always want to say that Cheesy was one of my heroes, because there was a former hockey player, doing the racing report from Rockingham. And I'm like, wow, how great would that to be an old retired hockey player and do the race recap from Rockingham. And here I am playing, and I'm at the Meadowlands working, and they're going to pay me, I think they paid me like $800 a week or something to come and pick the horses. And I'm like, well, these guys are smart. They just know they're going to pay me $800, and then just going to go right back to the windows anyway. So, it's like free, it's free advertising for them. But so I worked there for 3 months, and I worked with a great lady. Barbara Foster was the lead handicapper there. And, she was terrific with me, showed me the ropes. I learned about all the TV, vernacular and everything else. And that's how I got my start in television. And then fast forward, I get the job with NBC, and when JD left in 06, and for 5 straight, there was I waited a few years until I went to see Sam. So I had been working at NBC for, I think, 4 or 5 years. And then I would approach my boss, Sam Flood, once a year and just said, you know, hey, because the NBC had the rights for the Triple Crown and horse racing. And I just said, hey, look, like, you know, if there's ever an opportunity where somebody gets sick or, you know, you're looking to add to the coverage, you know, and Sam would always, you know, he'd give me the Heisman. He would, no, not right now, not right now. So I asked once a year. And then all of a sudden I think it was in the spring of 14, I got his attention and I just laid it on the line. And I just told him about the story that I just told you about getting my start in television through horse racing. And there was a long pause. And like I said, this was the 5th year in a row that I had asked him, because I asked him 10, 11, 12, 13, and then 2014. And there was a long pause and he just said, let me think about it. I'm like, whoa, I got a shot.
Breakthrough.
And
yeah.
He called me back like, you know, maybe 4 or 5 weeks later and just said, hey, we're going to give you a shot on not the Triple Crown, but we're going to give you a shot on a couple of shows in the summertime. And lo and behold, I went out to California, had a couple of races, had some success in the first couple of races I picked. And all of a sudden I become a part of the horse racing family and developed some great relationships. And somebody I'm sure you know very well, Bernie, I got a chance to work with the legendary Numi. I got a chance to work with the great Bob Newmeyer
yep.
for a long time together at NBC, and his wife, Michelle, and got to know them extremely well. And obviously I'd known Numi, you know, from his days, you know, covering the Bruins, but then also doing a game for the Whalers back in the day, I believe, on radio. And so, you know, it just was a natural. And now I've been able to be a part of the horse racing team and be the lead handicapper here for the last 5 years, and very excited about it. And as I said to my boss, Sam, after I saw my second Triple Crown in 4 years with Justify after American Pharoah, you know, I just kind of said, hey, Sam, you know, like, you know, 2 Triple Crowns in 4 years, you know, the common denominator is like,
that's right.
Like, you know, since I came on board. And in a typical Sam Flood style, Sam goes, well, what happened to the other 2 years?
That's right. What have you
and
done?
Then I just put my tail between my legs and I walked away as quick as I could. But very thankful to Sam for trusting me and giving me a chance, and really lucky to be a part of both teams at NBC, and really enjoy being a part of our coverage.
Indeed. That was only a 37-year drought with the Triple Crowns, not 54 with the Rangers. Different.
You know,
borough.
by the way, I'm a Cubs fan. So I had 108 years, 54 years, and then the 37 years. So I don't know if there's any other droughts going on here. You know, maybe I could help out. But yeah, it was great to be a part of, and one of the greatest events that I've ever been to was seeing American Pharoah cross the line first and winning the Triple Crown. The excitement at Belmont that day, the first Triple Crown in, you know, forever, was pretty special and great to be a part of it.
Yeah, indeed. And a mutual friend of ours who got me into horse racing, I met him through publishing and working on book projects, Pete Fornatal.
Sure.
And I was there. I've probably, of the last 15 Belmont since Pete and I have become friends, I think I've been to 13 of the 15. And there was nothing like the roar of the crowd, only equaled on the other side by the hush when Big Brown went down.
Yeah.
The air was taken out, but that rush of American Pharoah finally ending it. California Chrome was another one that was just a huge deflating moment. But now to have 2 Triple Crowns at it's just very, very special.
Yeah, it was great. Great to be a part of. And you're right, that crowd that day in 15 at Belmont when American Pharoah did what he did. And I think Larry Comas, our race caller for NBC in the Triple Crown, you know, the 37-year wait is over.
Yep.
American Pharoah is the one. Was pretty special. And everybody there. I mean, it was just one of those moments I'll always remember, that it's, you know, take playing out of it, take, you know, the actual playing out of it. To me, that was the greatest sporting event. I think I talk about it in the book. I think it's the greatest sporting event that I had ever been to, you know, non-related when it comes to the playing aspect of it.
Indeed. And Ed, you mentioned about the book and once again, beating the odds in hockey and in life. And just as we're winding down, we got to talk with as much time as we need on your end to talk about the in-life part of it and how your life dramatically changed with a phone call on August 4th, 2017. As you note, at 7:07 p.m., your entire world changed, and you're now on the other side of it and have the opportunity to tell that story, and I'm sure just so grateful for it.
Yeah, it was, it's just one of those things where, I hadn't been, I didn't feel good for a couple of days and, nothing out of the ordinary, but I just didn't feel well. And then I became constipated, which was not normal for me. At that time I was just 51 years of age and, or I was about to turn 51, excuse me. But, I just, I couldn't go to the bathroom and, I gave it a day and, I just went to the local Walgreens and bought some, some prune juice and something to try to Metamucil to try to break it up, and nothing really happened. And like I said, that wasn't normal for me. And then, I got really violently sick, and my buddy Dominic, who happened to be staying over that night because my family was out of town, and I asked him to actually sleep over, and he's like, "What do you mean?" I go, "You know what? I don't feel good, and if I need to go to the hospital, I need you to take me." And I knew something was really wrong, and so he rushed me to the hospital, and I got to the emergency room, a local hospital here in the suburbs of Chicago, and they told me I had a blockage in my colon, and they were going to, clean me up, and then I'll go to the bathroom and I'll be home in a couple of hours. I'm like, oh great, and next thing you know, they gave me an enema. I couldn't go to the bathroom still. They did an ultrasound and they just said, well, look, you got a blockage in there, and we're going to need to go and get this blockage and see what's going on. And so this is like 4:00 in the morning, and then they wheel in this big computer screen, and the doctor comes in there and says, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go in there, we're going to take this blockage, and then we're going to reconnect your colon to the outside of your stomach, and we're going to give you a bag, and you're going to come back in 6 months. And like, this is like, it's just like so much going at me here. And I'm just like, whoa, hold on a second here. I'm like, surgery? And I'm listening to all these things, and they're showing me pictures of, male models with bags on the outside of their stomach. And I'm just like, I didn't know what, I was freaking out, and I'm not by myself, but my buddy Dominic was there, and Dominic just said, hey, maybe you should call the Blackhawks. Maybe you should get a hold of Dr. Michael Terry, the lead physician for the Blackhawks, who's an ortho. He's not, into anything like that, but obviously he could give some direction. So, it's about 5:30 Central Time, and so I called Dr. Terry, and he happened to be on the East Coast at the time, and he answered his phone. And thank God that he answered it. And I just said, hey, Doc, man, this is what's going on. And he just said, hey, just tell him you don't want anything done. I'm going to put the ball in the air, and we're going to get you downtown to Northwestern Hospital. And, we're going to figure this thing out. So I get wheeled down to the hospital at Northwestern, and, 5 or 6 hours later, and then, 24 hours later, I'm having a stent put in to clean me out to see what's going on. And then 24 hours later, I had a 6.5 hour surgery removing a tumor the size of my fist. And then on August the 4th, as you mentioned, Bernie, at 7:07 p.m., I got the call that really changed, my life and the life of my family forever, that I was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer. So, like I said, I thought it was healthy, and I had an underlying condition that I had no idea that I had, but thank God that we were able to go in, get it. I had 6 months of chemo, and just had my 2-year anniversary where I'm all clear and all cancer free, and very blessed for that, very lucky. And hopefully people that either hear my story or read my book will be inspired somehow, or at least make sure that you're getting your checkup. And if you're not feeling good, it's okay to raise your hand and say, hey, I don't feel right, or, I need some help. But I'm lucky that I found it when I did. And just just one of those things that was a little bit of adversity in my life, and was able to overcome it and conquer it, and hopefully keep that horrible disease in the rearview mirror, because as you know, it doesn't discriminate. It can hit anybody anytime, and just very lucky to be on the right side of this 2 years later.
Indeed. And as you mentioned, I know in your story, no family history whatsoever.
Yeah,
and,
right.
Let that, as you say, let that be a lesson.
Yeah. I mean, going through the treatments, I mean, I would take 48 hours of chemo every 2 weeks for 6 months. And, anybody knows anything about chemotherapy, I mean, it tests your will to live. And, I came home and treatment 2, I had a port in my chest, and, I just was getting the medicine, and I had bad side effects. I mean, I would just go to the bathroom without having to go. And, the nausea, and I had neuropathy in my fingers and my feet, and headaches and a blood clot. And, I was to the point where it broke me, and I was ready to quit. I mean, I was a treatment and a half into 12 treatments, and I was ready to quit, because I was looking at it, Bernie, I wasn't looking at it, how am I going to get through today? I was thinking, how am I going to get through the next 5 months? And there is no Cliff Notes version of chemotherapy. There is no Cliff Notes version of beating cancer. And I just told my wife, I can't live like this. I can't. And I had never quit at anything in my life, whether it was playing baseball or playing hockey or standing behind a bench coaching or going to the racetrack and being down $20. All right, scratch that, being down $200. I was never going to quit. I mean, that just wasn't part of my DNA. But the chemo and the medicine broke me down, and I was ready to quit. And my wife grabbed me and gave me the greatest inspirational speech I ever had. And I've been in a lot of locker rooms. I've been in a lot of situations. And my wife just looked at me and just said, look, you got to fight. You got to fight for me. You got to fight for our kids. And you got to fight for all the people that love you. And I needed that, Bernie. I needed to get back on those tracks. And I know that if my wife did not tell me that, or my wife was not around, I would have quit. I'm not embarrassed to say that. I'm not proud to say that, but that's as honest as I can be. And I know there are a lot of people out there that are battling that. It's hard. I mean, it tests your will to live, like I said, and it breaks you down. But to know that there's people out there that can help you. You can hear my story or read my story. If I can inspire one person, then, it's well worth the 16 months of pen to paper to write the book and to put my life out there. And it's not only about my cancer battle, about hockey and horse racing and life and my family. And, but after my wife told me that, we had a moment that lasted 30 minutes, and all I did was cry for 35 of it. I mean, it was hard. And I said, okay. I reset, and I've always been goal orientated. And I just said, hey, look, okay, I'm just going to go day to day. I'm just going to try to get through tonight. And then once I get through tonight, I'm going to wake up tomorrow, and I'm just going to battle, and I'm going to get through the next thing. And for as simple as it sounds, it's probably the other extreme, because it's not easy, because all you're looking at is when in the hell am I going to get done with this treatment? And oh, by the way, 6 months later, they may come back and tell you, well, you got to go in again for another however many treatments. So I just hope that, anybody out there that is in a battle, it doesn't have to be cancer, it could be anything, is that, there are people out there that are with you. There are people out there that can help you. And to know that you're going to have tough times. And I think that's the one thing I'm most proud of. And the most feedback I've gotten on the book, Bernie, has been how open and transparent and honest that I was, especially about, what the cancer battle did to me and my family. And probably be the only book I do is some of my former friends asked me, are there crayons with this book? And no, there are not any crayons that come with this Eddie Olczyk book. maybe in the next one. But I'm proud of the way that it's come across, and hopefully I can help, I can help one person get through the day.
Indeed, the entire, and I know you spoke, and as everybody that is a member of the hockey community, you spoke in such glowing terms about the support. There's nothing like the hockey community to be part of it. I've seen it over the years, whether it was Travis Royce, the tragic situation, the way that the way those people rally is really special, Ed.
Yeah, I mean, the game of hockey, whether you know somebody very well or just in passing, to know that you had a bunch of people standing with you, not only in hockey, but in horse racing, my family, the team of doctors that I had, Dr. Terry was my team captain, but, from Dr. Ruckham and Dr. Mulcahy and, just everybody that helped me along the way. I mean, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for their incredible support. I know we've heard a lot about the first responders and the essential workers of what's going on here. And I just know from my cancer battle that, I had a lot of people that helped me along the way, and just very thankful. And, but you're right. The hockey community is a real special place, and very, very proud to be a very small part of it.
Indeed. Well, you much more than a small part of it, Ed. And I guess bringing us completely up to the present time, will we see hockey? Are you excited about the prospect of this tournament that they have on the table right now, in the face of what's happened with the COVID pandemic?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I certainly hope so. Certainly looks like the template is there, but as the commissioner, Mr. Bettman, has said, along with the deputy commissioner, Bill Daly, has said, is that, they're relying on the advice from the medical professionals. And I think that, they'll be the ones that ultimately make that decision. And if we do get back, that means we're in a much better place than we have been. And, when you put it in perspective, Bernie, I mean, we all know what is going on in the real world. But in our little world, the hockey world, it would be great to get the NHL back, and then hopefully we can get, college hockey back and minor hockey back, and get back to some sort of normalcy, whatever the new normal will be for all of us. But, I like the concept. Could you poke holes at it? Sure. But I think that the league has handled itself extremely well, from day one of the pause to being out there to answer questions to, going underground when there's been nothing to say. I think that the league is it's made me proud to be a part of the NHL, the way that the league has handled this. And look at there is no playbook for this. This is,
right,
for any of us. And again, we're putting it in perspective. Let me make it perfectly clear. We know what the real world is. We understand that. But when it comes to the sports world or the entertainment world is what we do. I think the league has done a wonderful job. So, I mean, I like to think I'm a real positive person. So, I would say there's, I'm planning on working now. I don't know when, but I'm planning on working, and hopefully that'll be sooner than later, and we'll be able to award the Stanley Cup and for this year, and then we'll worry about the start of next year when that happens. Probably a pretty good chance that's not going to start for a while, but hopefully we can get everybody back. And the most important thing, is everybody has said, the commissioner in particular, is as long as everybody is safe and it's it's okay to play, then the health of the players and everybody involved is the most important thing. And if we can figure that out, then we'll hopefully have NHL hockey in July and in August and probably into September, depending on how everybody cooperates.
And you got your horse racing. It's a different order, but the Triple Crown commenced with the Belmont on Saturday. With the Travers will be early August, the Derby will be early September, and the Preakness early October. So you certainly have that to take up your time in terms of your handicapping and prognosticating.
Yeah, looking forward to that. Had a great weekend this past weekend, working in Belmont from home, from my so-called
Yep.
studio in
Right.
in the Olczyk
War room.
household. And yeah, tis the law. Looks like a special equine athlete, and got the first W in the Triple Crown, and looking forward to seeing how this all plays out moving forward. And wondering if we'll have any fans at the Kentucky Derby on that first Saturday in September. Nobody knows. Nobody knows, but horse racing has continued to forge on, and looking forward to working the broadcast for NBC moving forward.
Talk about a guy beating the odds. He won the Pegasus, describing being down 5 goals in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup. So this guy knows a little bit about beating the odds, whether it's colon cancer or it's at the track.
Yeah, every once in a while, a squirrel finds a nut, and yeah, I was lucky to win that tournament, being down late, but
Late.
as long as you still got a couple of pucks on your stick, you got a chance, and was able to pull that off. Actually, that was in 18. That was in January of 18 when I won that handicapping tournament down in Florida from my home here, and I was actually in the middle of my treatments and for my colon cancer, Bernie. And as I said, that was the best medicine that I had over the course of the 6 months, is when I was able to win that tournament, being down really, really late in that tournament, and then hitting that trifecta for a few bucks and winning the tournament, being down very late in that Stanley Cup final, so to speak.
Indeed, never over till it's over. And we are talking about a guy who, people can talk about on all levels. Anybody that enjoys going to the track, and Pete Fornatel, as I said, he's cultivated my interest in it in the last 15 years. But anybody who had the day at Hollywood Park that you had $168 investment on a pick six, and you walked home, you made a few bucks that day. Not a bad day at the track.
Yeah, all I will say is that was long ago. But yeah, the $168 investment, I made a half a schmil.
Half a schmil, yeah.
And as I say to people, I got even. So that's all that really matters.
That's for the all-time list, as we say. You absolutely, it's all borrowed money, right? As they talk about.
That's it.
When I thought of that and looked at, that was obviously your best day for almost anybody, and I just thought of Richard Dreyfuss in the movie.
Let it ride.
Let it ride. I'm not. Well, you know the line, Ed. I'm not gambling. I'm winning.
Yeah. That's you got to make sure you bet with your head, not over it. That's what I tell everybody. So it's a form of entertainment, and I've been playing the horse since I was 12 or 13 years old. So I will continue to do that, and just met a lot of great people through horse racing, and it's a big part of my life, and it always will be.
Indeed. And as we wrap up, in my research here, I was fascinated by this with the span of your career and the great players that you played with, the teams that you were on. Would you venture a guess how many Hall of Famers you played with in your career?
Wow. I like this part of the interview here, Bernie.
I got the list here if you want to try to rattle the list down.
No, I'm gonna say, let's see, Chicago. I was with Savvy, Savard, nobody else. Okay, then I went to Toronto. I played with Borja Salming. Winnipeg, I was with Solani. That's 3. Well, then I got all those guys with the Rangers. Pittsburgh, the legendary Ronnie Francis, my former roommate, Mario, Yager, and then where else did I play? LA, I was with Blakey, and then Chicago at the end. So I'm going to say real quick, gosh, I'm probably going to be a little high on this, but I know I'm probably missing a couple of obvious guys. I'm going to say 12.
Pretty close. 14 in all.
14. Okay. All right. You got the list there?
I got the list here.
All right. Who did I miss there?
Well, you got Savard and Salming, Phil Housley.
Okay. Yeah.
Solani, Messier. You got Leach, Mike Gardner.
Yeah.
Rob Blake, Mario, Yager, Francis, Gilmore and Chelios. And
that's right.
Joe.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah, I forgot Gilmore. Chelly was a slam dunk. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So 14. All right. Okay. Yeah,
Yep.
that's all right. Yeah.
Yep.
Some pretty salty players there, by the way.
Absolutely. There's a few stories in the locker room with a few of those guys. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Indeed. Well, you're in Evelyn, and we hope that someday Toronto will call. You certainly have the pedigree and the resume to be in that discussion. And we're very happy to have had you for this discussion here today, Ed. Many thanks. And once again, if you want to read, and who doesn't want to read during the pandemic? Everybody's sequestered and sheltered and everything else. And if you're getting out to the beach, you got some summer reading. You want a great read, not just about hockey, but beyond, beating the odds in hockey and in life. And Ed has chronicled his life with Perry Lefko of the Toronto Sun, and Triumph Books, wherever better books are sold. As I can say, as an author, I always used to say that. Now I think everybody kind of ventures to Amazon and goes online, but pick it up and enjoy it. It's a great read. And Ed, pleasure to have you here on The Games People Play. You have played both the game of hockey and the game of life well, and may the horse be with you.
Thanks, Bernie. Great to be with you. Great to see you again, and look forward to hopefully seeing you in person.
Yes.
Then on a Zoom call. So I appreciate it. So thanks a lot.
Indeed. Could be at the rink or it could be at the track.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Absolutely. Best to you, my friend. That is Eddie Olczyk, our guest here this week on Season 1, Episode 2 of The Games People Play. I want to thank my partner in crime, High Crimes and Misdemeanors, Andy Bernstein, for all of his technical work here in production. Dave Bowen also assisting us here, coming up with a big assist for us here today. We forgot something. We didn't realize it was formal and we needed a tablecloth, but Dave came through for us there. Also to Kiwan, our Seattle connection. And also, of course, we are at the world famous, the legendary New England's largest sports memorabilia shop, our home here since 1986. It has been no place like Phil Castanetti's Sports World on Route 1 in Saugus, Mass. So for this week, we're going to say goodbye. And I believe we're going to, can I say it, Andy? We're going to the hardwood next week. Yeah. All right. Well, I can preview next week. We're going to be talking to, and I have to summon the spirit of, God rest his soul, the great Andy Jick, who was the public address announcer for the Celtics at the Boston Garden. And, well, you want to know who next week's guest is? I'll channel my inner Andy Jick and say, at center from Centenary, number 00, Robert Parrish. He will be our guest next week when the Games People Play. Will take it to the hardwood for Andy Bernstein and Dave Bowen and Phil Castanetti and our Seattle connection, Kiwan. This is Bernie Corbett saying, play your games well this week for the Games People Play. Bye-bye.